In this week's video, we're going to go over all of the information you can learn about the deer on your property after you shoot a deer on your property.
Mossy Oak Properties, where outdoorsmen find their favorite place.
So if you're a deer hunter and you hop on the old YouTube, open up the old Facebook, click on the old Instagram, and you're looking to learn about deer and deer hunting, most of the information, rightfully so, you find is going to be about how to shoot deer, how to be a more successful deer hunter. Information that you can apply to your hunting strategy so that when you go into the field you can be more efficient, more effective, and more successful. A lot of information out there you can learn about the animal's biology to be more successful in the field, about its habitat to make you a better hunter. But one thing, and it's what we're going to talk about in this video that doesn't get talked about a lot, but you can still learn about the species, is all the information you can learn after you've been in the field on a successful hunt and have put a tag on a deer.
I like all that.
That's good. Pretty good.
Yeah, exactly right. It doesn't stop after you harvest a buck or doe. I mean, it doesn't stop. We could always learn, and that knowledge will just make you a better hunter, make you a better manager.
Right.
Yeah. So you have the deer. It's laying there in front of you.
Right.
What can we learn after that?
Right. It really starts for me when I walk up on the deer after I've patted myself on the back and bragged to the world how good
Took a selfie with
of a hunter I am. It starts for me with field dressing the animal.
Yeah.
I field dress the deer, whether it's a buck or doe. The first thing I'm looking for is I cut open the stomach contents and see what that deer has been eating. But it's really cool, and I'm always really curious because especially during hunting season, we're out with the intention to shoot a deer, and for me, that's my goal. But whenever I'm in a deer stand and I see a deer, I have a routine. I mean, it's second nature, it's muscle memory. It could be a fawn, 50 yards out in the food plot or in the field or in the woods, binoculars, what's that deer eating? That's what I'm always curious about whenever I see a deer, is what that deer is eating. But food sources, especially during the fall, can be really instrumental to future hunts for you if you can learn what a deer is eating. If you see cracked acorns in a deer's stomach, you can know. And then, I mean, deer, they don't chew like we do. They don't chew their food whole. So you can really distinguish if it's a red oak or a white oak more times than not. Are they eating more woody browse if there are fewer acorns in the woods? Are they eating more greens, food plots, more old field type of cool season forbs if there are limited acorns? You learn what a deer's eating, and if
corn,
you know corn, beans, especially, depending on where you're at in the country, food sources change, but you can learn what a deer's eating. If you know what a deer's eating, you're going to find deer.
Yeah, and then on top of the food value of it, obviously, looking at the stomach content, looking at the body. Like after you got the animal and then skin it. Yeah. Let's talk about that. When you have the deer hanging, looking at all that body fat, it's just some people, it's like a caterpillar. Got the light, dark, light. It's going to be a bad winter. I don't know, But no, looking at the body fat and going back to the stomach contents and the organs and stuff, looking at kidney fat, that tells you the health of that animal. And looking at the body fat, it's not like going to be a bad winter. No, there's just a lot of resources out there for these animals to consume. So therefore, a healthy animal. You're doing your job. Right.
That's a good point. Fatty kidneys. That's one thing that I always look for when I field dress a deer, or fatty kidneys, because that's very indicative of that animal's health. And then of course, overall fat on the body. It's always really rewarding, and you feel good as a manager, and you feel good for the remaining animals in the herd if they got a big fat layer of fat, because deer are made for the winter, but it's reassuring the human side of us to know that if you got a fat layer on that deer, that they're going to be warm throughout the winter.
Yeah, especially in the early part, when you start seeing that is a great thing for a manager to know that you are doing your part. Mother Nature has to do the rest of it with the acorn production and stuff like that, but you are providing. That's knowledge. Yeah. That is hardcore knowledge. So moving on, what else can we learn from this?
Well, we'll continue to dismember the animal after the fact, which sounds barbaric and really graphic, but again, there's so much value in each of these things that we're highlighting. we will remove the jawbone and determine that deer's age.
Yes. Age obviously is part of quality deer management, and that is a very important piece of the management tool. And that deer is providing you so much, okay? So if you're a seasoned pro, you can, pop the jaw out with a jaw spreader.
Right.
Okay? And that takes some practice and stuff. And you can take that jaw to a state agency. You could take it to a consultant. And also another thing, there's several companies out there that if you take those incisors, the bottom teeth, and ship them out to them, it's like what they do is they cut it, and it's counting like rings on a tree. They're giving the age, and there's really good companies out there that you can do that to get to a somewhat exact age, because it's not an exact science whether you're taking the jawbone and aging it that way or shipping the lower incisors off.
Right. Yeah, it's called cementum annuli, and it's literally exactly what you said. I mean, it's a very specific and exact process to learn the age of that deer. Going off a jawbone, you can get, as you know, you've done hundreds if not thousands, you can get pretty close, but counting the rings just like you would on a tree, you're getting an exact, more precise age.
Yeah, more precise, yep. But along with that, taking that knowledge right there, getting the age, and you throw weight on top of that.
Yeah.
That alone is some great great knowledge as well that can help us.
Right, and you take those two together and then you put them in a pot, mix them up, make you some deer management soup. And then that's when you really start to take all these elements, add them together, and then you can learn about the overall health of your deer herd, and it can influence your management decisions moving forward. And that's why it's really important to keep all this data, and it sounds like a lot of work, but if you're like me, it's really enjoyable, and you can look back over the years, and it's a great way to remember past hunts. Is the more deer you shoot, they can all run together, and if you keep a journal, keep data, you can remember hunts and the sentimentality side of things as well. It's a really good word.
That is a good word. That's a big word. I don't want to try to say it.
But as a deer manager, you can learn on top of that as well, and if you shoot however many deer over a certain number of years that are 2.5 years old, and if you see those weights incrementally increase over 5 or 10 years or whatever that time span is, then you know that your habitat work is paying off, and those deer are getting healthy. If you're shooting 2.5-year-old deer and those weights are remaining the same, or heaven forbid they're decreasing, then you need to shoot more deer or create more habitat. So all this information, once you piece it together, it can really influence your management decisions moving forward.
Yeah, and all those little steps, it's just little steps. And as managers, as deer hunters, we like to spend lots of money.
Right. Yeah.
So building a skinning shed, it's a real big Southern tradition type thing, but that's region-wise, it's just a thing. But having a little place, whether it's in your garage, having a weight, a weight so you can weigh the deer, having a place to skin the deer, do all that management stuff, have data, have a clipboard of stuff that check off. In the whole scheme of things, it doesn't take that long to accomplish any of this, and that's the best part, because a lot of times, let's be honest, when it's dark, you shoot the deer, not that dark, but you shoot the deer, then it gets dark, and then it's like it's already 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and it's like, man, the last thing I want to do is do all this stuff. It's an extra half hour, it's an extra 20 minutes, depending how good you are with any of this stuff, but it doesn't take that extra time. It just mentally, it's another step that we don't want to take care of. Your wife's already mad at you, just keep going. So one of the last things that we can do, and it's usually we talk about in other episodes, that we want to shoot our does early. Well, I know myself, every 3 years or so, I like to check on the health of my deer herd, and not just by kidney fat and weight and all this other stuff. And it's kind of true data where we can tell when our rut is, we can tell the health of our deer herd through fetus collection. And certain states allow, the season continues after like January 1st in Ohio. It goes later in. A lot of states are like that. And that is fetus collection. Yeah,
as you mentioned, there's a lot of science that goes into fetus collection. You can learn a lot of all the elements that we've discussed. This might be the most beneficial, or the one that you can derive the most information from. You can learn when those does are being bred. As a result, over time, once you get a big enough sample size, if does are being bred across a big, long window, then you got too many deer. we want our rut to be as short and tight as possible. So deer are being bred, bucks are breeding does in as tight a window as possible. As a result of knowing when the doe was bred, the following spring we can know when the fawn was born.
Yep.
So we get a big aerial view of the health of our deer herd, how it's functioning.
Yeah, and it's a simple thing. You can buy it through Forestry Supply. You can go online, NDA, National Deer Association. There's many places to buy this fetus scale. It's like maybe $7, $9, $11. You know, it's a big piece of plastic. It has all these numbers and a ruler, and it's so easy to use.
Yeah.
You simply lay the fetus on there, take a measurement, and you do. And it's not trigonometry, it's not geometry. It's just simple plus and minuses.
Right.
You can tell by a simple addition and subtraction when that doe, again, was bred, like Cody said, and when it was born. But why is that important? You mentioned like the timing of rut. Now, like if you do it every year or every 2 years, or like myself, every 3 years, you know, when you start coming up with the same pattern. Like last time I did it, it was November 9th through the 12th. And that last previous 3 years, it was the same time.
Right.
Guess when I'm going to have my vacation? You know, just that alone helps you out with the hunting aspect, of the enjoyable aspect of it. But when you have those does being bred, let's just say you're in the Midwest, that time period, that fawn drop is also important. Reference what?
Habitat and predation.
Oh, absolutely. Those things right there are very important. When we have those being bred too early, there's not a lot of fawning cover. I mean, it's not a lot of green. They're more exposed. There's so many other reasons.
Right.
So having that fawn drop is very important knowledge as well.
And on the predation side of things, if you have a long, drawn-out rut and you find that the does are being bred not in that tight window, like you said, the majority of yours are, hypothetically speaking, let's say the 9th through the 12th, but over time you collect enough fetuses and you find that does are being bred from the middle of October all the way to January. A tight breeding window, biologically speaking, is done intentionally by the species. It's a flood the market type of strategy the following spring, because there want to be, for the species, as many fawns on the ground as possible at once. That helps combat predation because it's harder for whatever predator you have in the woods, bobcat, bear, coyote, whatever the case may be. If there are more fawns on the property, on the ground at once, it's more likely that the majority of those fawns are going to live. If there's a fawn, only one fawn on the property, on the ground a week, it's going to be very easy for those predators to find the one. More fawns on the ground at once increases fawn recruitment.
Yeah, and just simply by having, I can't emphasize, of all the things that we can talk about, this is one of those things that it's so much information. So information overload that it tells you.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get done because it is disgusting. It is kind of, you know, it's kind of, I understand why people don't want to do it, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But just knowing as a manager, like when fawn drop is, because that's important.
For sure.
But it's just, if you're seeing them early, it tells you like, hey, I need to get the chainsaw out there and provide better quality habitat, even though there isn't green up. Or I'm going to plant more warm season grasses, pollinators, diversify your habitat if you've noticed the trends being that way. And also, you can correct that.
Right.
Yeah,
as we mentioned, there's so much information that we discussed in this video, from collecting jawbones, recording field dress weights, fatty kidneys, evaluating stomach contents when you're field dressing the deer. But fetus collection, I think, is what you can learn the most from in just a singular process.
Yeah, and like Cody mentioned, in his state, it kind of ends early, prematurely, you know, to get those fetuses. So how do we collect? If you do live in a state that has that, where can we get this? How can we, achieve our goals? And that is simply by asking your state agency. Maybe every so many years they collect that data. You can ask them what the trend is. You can also contact your wildlife officer in your county, and I know this sounds really stupid, but you can ask them if it's legal to, if you see roadkills, reach out there and do that.
Right.
You know, you'll get the strange looks as cars drive by, but hey,
Right.
I'm a manager, I'm a biologist, right? That's what we're doing. So asking permission to do these things, and also asking your state agency if they are currently doing a program to help you out.
Yeah.
And maybe encourage them to, hey, let's run the season a little bit longer.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So with all that being said, there's so much information out there that we can learn after we harvest our animal. And then we talk about, like on social media, hey, I'm a deer manager, I'll do this, but we're only just putting food plots out and shooting big bucks.
Yeah.
That's not true management, not at all. Doing all this extra steps, and it's not time consuming, it actually is exciting. And once you get past that, we understand, like looking at kidneys and digging around, looking at stomach contents and stuff like that. You know, we've been doing it long enough, we could eat a sandwich and do it, you know, but but you're being, you know, a biologist, you're looking at true data, and it will only help you achieve a healthy deer herd on your property and overall community.
Mossy Oak Properties, where outdoorsmen find their favorite place.